Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to Intuitive Angling, and thanks for joining me for today's video. Hope you guys are doing well out there. Got a good video for y'all today that I think is going to help y'all catch some good ones over the next month. I'm going to share with you guys my speed cranking Shad Wrap technique that I haven't talked about before. This is something I've been doing for almost 30 years. I'm going to explain to you what you need to do, how you need to do it, what you need to look for, conditions it works in, and under the right set of circumstances, there's not a better way to catch bass. So we're going to get into that in today's video. Also guys, quick invitation out there. I'd like everybody, anyone interested in becoming a channel member of Intuitive Angling, it's a good way to support the channel along with our Patreon and using all of our links in the description. Channel members get extra videos every week that are not seen by the public and some access to my email address for your fishing questions. And if you're interested, just go to my YouTube homepage and click on the little join button that you'll see on the page, and that gives you the information for the memberships there. So much appreciated. Okay guys, the Shad Wrap speed cranking technique. Tell you the story about how this thing happened here. I was fishing a buddy tournament down at Table Rock Lake. Man, this has probably been at least 20 years ago. Could have been 25 years ago with a buddy of mine, Rick Johnston from Joplin. And this was a large buddy tournament. We were practicing down there for a couple days, and we were both fishing in separate boats. And this was it was a May tournament. It was early May. It was like just post spawn. And some of the fish were still on bed, some of them were done spawning. And a couple of friends of mine down there, they were catching them on, cranking on a deep little end, at the time. And I didn't have any when I was practicing down there. All I had was some Shad Wraps with me, the number 7 Shad Wrap like this. And so I started throwing the Shad Wrap. And I wasn't catching anything at first. And then one time I threw it out there, I remember, and I made a long cast. And I remember I'd cast it out a little too deep, or it wasn't the target I was wanting. So I just reeled the bait in as fast as I could to make another cast because I didn't think I was going to catch one with that. And one nailed it as I was reeling it in super fast. I'm talking about I was throwing it out there and I was just cranking it in, just trying to get it in. Boom, one nailed it like that. So I'm like, man, that was weird. I wonder if it was because the fish was out deeper or it was my speed or retrieve. So I started rotating. I started, fishing some banks with a medium retrieve, and then I started burning it on some, and I started catching fish almost every place I went to by burning the Shad Wrap out there. And I couldn't believe it. It's like water was pretty clear. It wasn't that warm. I had never caught fish burning a Shad Wrap like that. It was like a freak deal, but these fish wanted it. It's like that's what they wanted. And I wound up using it. Rick and I used it in the tournament. We caught 21 pounds in the tournament on it, and caught a bunch of keepers. I mean, it was a really good deal. And ever since then, when I get in those similar situations, excuse me, the speed cranking with the Shad Wrap has been super productive for me. So I sort of want to go over with a little bit about what you need to look for and a little bit more specifics of the technique. So first of all, let's talk about the Shad Wrap here. Also, guys, I'll put my Tackle Warehouse link in the description for the Shad Wraps. If you guys want to pick up some and try this technique, you can use that link, and it's a good way to help the channel out. But anyway, you want the number 7. Shad Wraps come in several different sizes. They got a number 5, a 7, and a 9. This is the medium size. This is the number 7. This is the one you want. And they're coming in a lot of different colors. Colors for me haven't really been that big of a deal. I've caught them on this color here, the threadfin shad pattern, or I guess it is. The Table Rock tournament we were talking about, this is actually the color I caught them on in there. It was the blackback silver side. So any type of shaddy looking pattern like that. So first thing you need to do is got to have it in the right area. And we'll talk about the equipment a little bit. This is a clear water deal. I've not been able to duplicate it in any off-colored water. So you need to have water visibility of say between 3.5 to maybe 6 foot visibility. Now, Shad Wrap is not notoriously known as a clear water crankbait. It's more of just a green, average water, 2-3 foot visibility, maybe 4. But that 3.5 to 6 foot visibility in that zone, I have found that works the best. Next thing that you have to have those fish in that post-spawn mood and personality. Now, there can still be some fish spawning, but you need to have a lot of the fish that are still shallow. Some of the fish may be bedding, some of them may be garden fry, sort of that zone there. So you're looking at the time frame for, depending upon what part of the country you're in, anywhere between late March into mid-May is going to be the ideal time frame for it. Next thing you have to have is you've got to have some type of rocky, gravelly, or sandy banks that are positioned within spawning coves. And what you want to do with this is, say for example, if you know where some fish are spawning, you've got a cove that's got some rock, gravel, or whatever like that, just some type of hard bottom. Go into those areas where you think those fish were spawning. And say, for example, if you think the fish were spawning in 2 to 5 foot of water, just back out a little bit and make a long parallel cast down sort of in that 6 to 8 foot zone. Now, a Shad Wrap, when you put it on 6-pound test line and you make a long cast with it, and especially if you put a little weight on it, it'll run close to 8 foot deep on a super long cast. And that's another thing that you have to do. You got to use this thing on 6-pound line, guys. I use the 6-pound test Seaguar and Vizex fluorocarbon line. The light line is critical, not only to get your bait deeper as far as the lighter line, but you get that depth from the extra casting distance. So the casting distance is super, super critical with the light line, because in order to maximize the full depth of the bait, the longer the cast you have keeps that bait in that strike zone longer. So say for example, if you make a 40, 50, 60 foot cast, you're going to be maximized out at the deepest part of that crankbait longer than if you made a cast that half a length. So try to make the longest cast you can. And when you're burning that bait, it doesn't take it very long to get it back. It just stays in that strike zone longer. And again, that 6-pound line will get that bait down into that zone where those bigger post-spawn fish are at. Because what happens a lot of times is these fish that are cruising the shallows, and the males and the females that are spawning, after they're done, they just pull out a little bit deeper on those same banks. It's not like they swim out of there. They just, if they had a bed in 3 or 4 foot of water, after they're done, they just may pull out there in 6, 8, 10 foot of water close to it. And that is when the burn and the Shad Wrap technique is really, really good. Main thing you want to use with it, guys, spinning rod. You got to have 6-pound line. I use that Megabass Whip Snake spinning rod. Make your long cast out there. Point that rod tip straight at the lure and just crank that lure fast, and occasionally stop and go. Maybe a half turn once in a while, but you want this bait moving pretty fast through the water. You want it going just like that. It's a reaction strike, and that's one of the reasons they hit it in that clear water, is because you're using that fast speed to retrieve. The weather conditions didn't seem to matter. I think probably a little bit of wind helps, although I have caught them in calm conditions. I've caught them in sunny, partly cloudy, and cloudy conditions. I think what it is there's something about that, and this was a technique, like I said, I stumbled on this by accident, just by reeling it in fast. And that's how you figure out a lot of things in bass fishing, is by accident. But I think a lot of times when those fish are in that sort of that early post-spawn phase, there are certain things that will trigger those fish to bite based upon the conditions you have. And when you have those conditions that I described, the clear water, the right temperature, the right type of cover, and that right speed to retrieve, all that ingredients are coming together perfect to get that bass to react to that bait during that specific time frame. Now, once that water temperature gets warmer up in mid-late May, and those fish start moving out of those areas, it's not going to work. But for that 3-week period that we're coming up on right now, from about now over the next 3 or 4 weeks into the first part of May, guys, get you some of those Shad Wraps. I can promise you it'll work wherever you're fishing at. Largemouth, smallmouth, spotted bass, it doesn't really matter. Ideal scenario, if I could pick the perfect lake, it's some type of a highland impoundment, clear water lake. It could be any place, like anywhere between Lake Lanier, Lake Cumberland, Ozark Lakes, some lake, Oroville in California, whatever like that. Lakes that fall into that category. But it's something I haven't talked about, and I promise you it'll work. It'll catch some good ones. So hope it helps out. We'll talk to you guys later.